Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Sierra Obermark.
I'm Sophia Jenkins.
And I'm Irvin Cateman. And I'm so excited to introduce our returning guest today. It's Leah Jameson. Hello.
Yay.
Woohoo!
So happy to be back.
Leah, we're so excited to have you back on. We thought you did a great job on the last, it was Harry Potter's mystery episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode recently, even though they should, remind us your, Harry Potter profile, your house, favorites and all that.
Sure. Okay, so I am a strong Gryffindor, on paper. I've been skydiving, scuba diving, did the whole solo travel that very much Gryffindor coded. And then as I've gotten older, I think I've found a few more Hufflepuff traits. Maybe it's listening to this podcast too. I don't know. Trying to find a few more.
That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to us.
Oh my gosh. So I'm slowly developing that part of my identity. But yeah, have always called myself Gryffindor. Journey to Potter, that was, I probably covered it the first time I was here. But in short, I started with the third book, unconventionally. I was kind of young when the first movie came out. I was only 5. I just clearly remember running, screaming from the room when the flashback part happened with a dark hooded figure. That was so terrifying to me. It didn't come back until reading the third book. And so that's why the third book is my favorite book. And then character, I'll say my favorite character is Ginny. I just relate to her a lot. Her whole character arc, being the youngest daughter, having crushes on my older brother's friends, sort of going through a trauma and then coming out the most unbothered person. Just love her so much. And then love to hate Lupin and Hagrid. So
excellent.
We won't get into that.
We will.
More on that later. Yeah.
We won't get into the Lupin of it, but
we won't get into the Lupin.
Yeah. Leah, I know you wanted to get into the Hagrid of it all with me.
Yes.
And so I don't know that we're going to do that in its own episode, but it might just be this episode.
It might come out here. We'll see how much restraint we have.
But anti-Lupin is interesting.
I mean, to be fair, there are points.
Yeah.
When he's not the best.
There are points, but
however, there's points when anybody's not the best.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I do know of people who really dislike Lupin.
It's not a common one.
No one's ever made a super compelling argument for it, in my opinion.
My argument, I don't know, I'll try to keep it brief, but it's me. It's honestly, it's just projection. It's me projecting, and that's why I don't like him. That's why he rubs me the wrong way. Everything that I don't like about him is what I hope I am not in myself. He never overcomes his adversities. Mm-hmm. He sort of he stays like a victim to that the whole time, and I hope I am not the kind of person that does that. So that's why I dislike him.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're thrilled to have you on, and I think we're gonna just skate on past Lupin before the episode fully derails.
Sounds good.
But welcome back.
Thanks.
All right. Well, today for episode number 53, we have gathered to discuss the 14th chapter of the Harry Potter series, Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback, which is Sorcerer's Stone, chapter 14. We encourage you to read the chapter before listening, but we're not your mom. No, Oreo's not here to say it for me. And we do have some recommended reading for this episode. It is Dumbledore's Giant Mistake by Irvin.
Yes. Yeah, it was my original anti-Hagrid screed. That's where it all began. And, his actions in this chapter factor prominently. But yeah, before we kick off the discussion, we want to send a huge thanks to Caroline Oberlander over on our Patreon, who bought us this round of drinks at the pub. Yay! Carolina, thank you for my enormous cup of coffee. It's much appreciated. Listeners, if you want to buy us around at the pub, head on over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with the numeral 3 to sign up. We're offering so much bonus content, chats with the hosts, on-episode shout-outs to our Patreons, and lots more. We would really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on at the Three Broomsticks, so we can just keep talking about Harry Potter for a long time to come. It's our 3rd year. Wow. And hopefully of many, many more.
That's crazy. Wow.
I know. Does it not feel like we just started this like a couple months ago?
Yes.
And suddenly we're on episode 50, whatever.
That's so wild. I mean, and I even missed the first few, but it still feels like it was not that long ago.
Yeah. Sam, unfortunately, could not be here to read the chapter summary because he called out sick and, assured us that there's absolutely no possible way he could be the one to read this. I'm afraid
I'm looking down, and I would really like to do it because I see a very fun alliteration in there.
Sierra, you've known Sam the longest. I feel like you are the best at really capturing his voice. So, yes, take it away, Sierra, as written by Sam.
I can't mimic it quite as well, but here we go. Praise be to Merlin's throaty belch. Quirrell is much braver than the trio anticipated. Also, Ron shows a great aptitude for understanding the relativity of time, much to the surprise of everyone. While the teachers pile on lots of work, Hagrid knows the trio is probably still looking into Flamel and is crestfallen to discover how much they know. However, Hagrid won't tell them a thing about the protections for the stone, except a lot of core details. Who put the enchantments there? Aghast to hear Severus the Slinking Stubborn and Stinky Snape put one there, Harry and co argue with Hagrid that Snape might actually try and steal it. Alas, Hagrid ends up right, but that doesn't stop him endangering children with a live dragon hatching. Norberta is born, and Draco, encouraged by his namesake dragon senses, wafts down to Hagrid's hut like a Disney mouse smelling a Disney pie. We get our only notable contact from Charlie for the next 2 books, and Charlie's friends come to rescue Norberta and save Hagrid's job. Only Draco stole Charlie's rescue instructions from Ron's clutches, and Malfoy, Neville, Hermione, and Harry end up losing everything.
Bravo.
Doo-doo-hoo.
I think you really captured Sam's essence there.
Oh, thank you. I try.
Yeah, it's a interesting chapter. It's a very episodic one. I might argue the most episodic in the whole series.
Yeah, the fact that we both get and lose Norbert in one chapter is a little wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much adventure of the week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's kick it off.
Fantastic.
And it does kick off immediately following up on the big reveal in the last chapter, where, the stone's only safe as long as Quirrell protects it. Dun, dun, dun.
When it's first mentioned that the group kind of starts being nice to and, in regards to Quirrell, which for Quirrell has to seem like it comes out of friggin' nowhere because they don't know that he doesn't know that they know anything. And so just suddenly Harry is sending smiles over to Quirrell and what must Voldemort be thinking? He's why is my arch enemy suddenly being kind to this host? We're getting these very unconvincing smiles sent our way all the time. What is happening?
Do you think maybe Quirrell was taken with it? He's like, my lord, do we have to kill the boy? Because he seems so friendly.
Well...
No, for me, the funniest part of this is that Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. And I'm like, the audacity. Can you imagine being like a 7th year and this 12-year-old pipsqueak shows up and tells you off for laughing at a professor? Like, wow.
I'm surprised he wasn't bullied for this move.
Right, like mercilessly bullied.
And also, like, you know, because Ron is, like, not always the most tactful person, like, I'm just imagining the people who know him and are like, geez, Ron, like, just 2 weeks ago you were doing the same thing. Like, what's your problem?
Yeah. Ron, hypocrite of all time.
Well, and can't you just imagine him being like, yeah, but I'm enlightened now. I've seen the error of my ways.
Right. Things have changed. What's changed, Ron? Nothing.
I've just become more mature since turning 12. What's your excuse? Oh, honestly, there is so much fun stuff in this, like, opening bit about Quirrell. What I found fascinating is that Quirrell is getting thinner. Do we think unicorn blood helps people lose weight? And, like, how? Like, maybe unicorn blood has negative calories, like celery. So, like, you know, eating it actually takes energy.
Well,
Or...
Oh my gosh. I mean, I like this train of thought. However, I have a real answer.
Well, okay, no, the real answer is obviously that drinking unicorn blood is actually an appetite suppressant. It curbs your appetite because, I mean, the idea of drinking unicorn blood curbs mine, no problem. So I think that's the real trick.
Oh gosh.
well, maybe,
Oh,
you know,
man.
they say that you live a half life, so maybe what they mean by that is, like, you're, like, half
You only
the
need-
weight.
You will live a half life, a cursed life with half the calories.
Potentially. I mean, I think the real answer is just he's under a lot of stress.
Yes.
Voldemort is probably sucking at his life's essence constantly. And it's because of the unicorn blood, Voldemort's getting stronger. And so it's pulling on Quirrell more than before. But I do like the negative calorie potential.
You know, Sierra, you have your theories, I have mine. Wait, Leah, aren't you, like, trying to get into the whole dietitian world? Like,
I
what's
am.
your perspective on this?
I'm a nutrition grad student. I would say, well, I was actually going to say, don't we talk a little bit about the 12 uses of dragon's blood in this chapter, or we get like an intro to that? Yeah. And I was wondering if drinking dragon's blood would be at all similar or the opposite of unicorn blood in terms of weight gain and weight loss or protein content. Who knows?
I feel like just from because it seems to be like the essence of the creature, because the whole reason that unicorn's blood is because it's so pure, so innocent. And so I feel like for a dragon, like it would have to have some sort of like bulking effect.
Yeah,
I
I think dragon's blood is probably really calorie dense, actually, to make you put on weight.
Or, yeah, it, like,
Probably.
helps you get, like, muscular. Yeah. Get swole.
Yeah. I really want the Wizarding Mean Girls remake where they give Regina George dragon's blood, telling her it's unicorn blood and will help her lose 3 pounds. It's the crossover I've always needed.
Yes, exactly. You didn't think you needed Mean Girls in Harry Potter, but we've got it for you.
It is interesting that Quirrell's getting thinner, like timeline-wise. The start of this chapter is like the morning after Hagrid went and got the dragon egg, which means that shouldn't Quirrell now be happy?
Yeah.
Right? Because like his plan worked. But I don't know.
So shouldn't he like be like eating cake and celebrating?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That's what I would be doing.
You would think so.
I would.
I mean, I feel like because the only ones that he needed, it sounds like he didn't know how to get past Snape's necessarily either. But it didn't kind of sound like Fluffy's the only one that he really was holding out on, because he could probably figure everything out even if he doesn't 100% know it going in. He could probably figure it out when he's in there, but he has to be able to get past Fluffy first. So like, yeah, that's like the last thing stopping him. Wouldn't you think he'd be a little bit more
Oh, wait. I correct
positive?
myself. It's the tense of this first paragraph. It's like in the weeks that followed. So it's talking about before this morning. He's getting pale. So he's like, I guess, hunting down this dragon egg for a couple weeks. Because I don't know how long it would take to find one.
Oh, okay.
They don't seem common.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, the amount of work Quirrell must have done throughout the year, like, it's mind-boggling to think about. Because, like, he had to get himself a Norwegian Ridgeback egg, which presumably are in Norway and, like, not in the UK.
And we don't hear about him, like, leaving. So he has to have some sort of, like, a go-between.
Wait,
who's tracking this down for him.
No, but aren't the Easter holidays in this chapter? Maybe he left during the Easter holidays to get to go to Norway to get the dragon egg.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Ah.
My question is, do we think that he found one on the black market and just arranged for it? Or do you think he actually went and, like, stole a dragon egg?
I imagine stole because, like, where would Quirrell have the money? Like, it's not like Voldemort, comes with, like, Gringotts vault keys. And, like, Quirrell's on a teacher salary, so.
Mm-hmm.
True.
I don't think Quirrell could take a dragon.
Well, steal an egg.
I don't think he could take it.
We needed him for the fourth task.
Yeah. Like, I think he took it for a person who had the egg. But I don't think Quirrell was actually, like, going face-to-face with a dragon to get its egg. Like, goblet.
Could have set something up via black market and then just taken it off the person without paying them.
Oh my god. What a missed opportunity. One of the dragons in Goblet of Fire should have been a Norwegian Ridgeback mother who's like, I lost my egg 3 years ago and I'm not making that mistake again.
Oh my god.
Full circle.
Ooh.
And, like, Harry has to face this mother, and, like, the mother somehow knows that he has had contact with Norbert.
He's been in contact. That would be wild. Bonus points if Norberta and the mom were reunited.
Yeah.
When Charlie takes her in, and then it would be like, oh, you rescued my baby. And then she'd just be like, you want this golden egg here.
Cute.
That would be cute.
Yeah, honestly, if this were more high fantasy, that would 100% be how it went.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
But, like, going back to Quirrell, like, so he had to spend his spring break finding a dragon egg in Norway. Like, imagine the flying practice he had to do to, like, get that flying key. Like, can you imagine, like, suddenly he's on the Quidditch pitch all the time and Madam Hooch is like, wow, Professor Quirrell, you got really into flying the last few months. And he's like, yeah, midlife crisis, you know how it goes. And he had to practice playing chess.
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm guessing he had to play against Voldemort, right? Like, he makes a move, turns the board, and turns around.
Oh my god.
It's like that Pixar short.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Jerry's game. Yeah. Gerald's game. Jerry's game? Gerald's game. I can't remember. One of those.
Yeah, I don't think we talk enough about all the hard work Quirrell put in this year, while also teaching, a full-time job.
He really did the most. Only to die at the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exhausting.
But talk of teaching and full-time studying.
And not doing the most.
Let's talk about exams, because Hermione needs to take it down so many notches. So Ron thinks that the exams are ages away. 10 weeks, Hermione snapped. And I'm sorry, I'm 100% with Ron on this one. The only exams in my life that I studied for 10 weeks in advance was the SAT and the SHSAT. I'm like, if it wasn't getting me into a school, I wasn't studying 10 weeks in advance.
Also, like, when I was in college, I had a trimester system where the whole trimester was 10 weeks. So the idea of, like, first week of classes studying for exams, like, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, no. And that's in college. These are 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're literally studying before the last trimester. Like, it's spring break. The last trimester hasn't even started.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, she needs to calm down just a wee bit on that one.
Just a scotch.
Yeah.
Also, Hermione is bad at math. Because her follow-up is, Hermione says, that's not ages, that's like a second to Nicholas Flamel, and that is deeply hyperbolic, which is coming from me. But I'm sorry, Nicholas Flamel is 55 times as old as the trio at this point. So proportionally to him, 10 weeks is like a day and 6 hours, which actually sounds right around the time you'd want to begin studying.
Well, she is 11, so I don't really expect her to do that math, but,
Yeah.
Well, maybe if she spent less time studying and more time learning elementary multiplication and division, we wouldn't have this problem.
I do think it's interesting, though, that they need to pass exams to move on to second year, because in that, like, in our world, in that time frame, you don't have to pass a test to move on. Your teacher just kind of knows if you should be held back or not. Right? Because it's not, I mean, I guess it's like middle school, which you have multiple teachers teaching multiple different classes. And I mean, you have a final grade, but it's encompassing the whole school year. It's not just your exam. I mean, your exam might be a fair portion of it, but it's not like if you get a good enough grade during the course of the class, you could fail the exam at the end and pass the class and still be able to move on. So then it kind of got me on like, okay, so if you don't pass, do you get held back? Is there summer school? Do they give up and like kick you out at some point if you're 16 years old and you can't pass first year?
Well, to your first question, yes, they do get held back because we know someone who did. Marcus Flint had to repeat a year because he's a sixth year in Sorcerer's Stone and he's still around in Prisoner of Azkaban. And when people were like, Miss Rowling, she was like, oh, yeah, he got held back. And it's totally not a math mistake on my part because I know math better than Hermione. It's definitely Marcus Flint's mistake.
No. I feel like if you're going to get held back, like it's so much more common to get held back when you're younger. So the fact that he got held back as like a sixth year is rough.
Well, but we also get another example, right? Because Crabbe and Goyle don't pass into Newt level defense against dark arts. Because I think Snape says to Draco that, you know, Crabbe and Goyle need to work harder if they want to pass their defense OWL this time around. So they're literally having to repeat fifth year defense.
Yeah, but that's one class. That's not.
Yeah, but like, how do you?
That's not the whole thing. They're not going to be staying there an entire extra year.
Well, I think it depends, right? Like, you know, if you're failing like one class or two classes, then whatever. But like, if you have not passed a single class, then I think you're getting held back.
Also, like, is Marcus Flint really that much dumber than Crabbe and Goyle? Because Crabbe and Goyle are constantly spoken about as if they are totally dumb. And so, like, how are they actually like, I can understand them passing a class with like help from those around them, but like when it comes to an exam, like they're on their own. So are they more competent than we're being led to believe, or are the exams just really, really easy? And Marcus Flint really does have troll's blood.
Well, but it's like you said, Marcus Flint's got held back in sixth or seventh year, which I imagine is a lot harder than, you know, the first few years. Because, like, by the time Crabbe and Goyle are in the last years of their education, like, you know, there's a lot going on.
Education is not so education-y.
Right, like, you know, first the headmaster dies, then the headmaster's a Death Eater who is very invested in getting them through their schooling. Like, I'm gonna say extenuating circumstances for their last few years that weren't there for Marcus Flint.
Fair enough.
Also, like, Crabbe, at least, like, we get a sense from the seventh book, the first time we see him actually speak or do anything, like, he has some actual magical abilities. Like, he creates that, like, fiend fire thing that I assume is very hard to do. And, like, I get the sense that, like, he's not intellectual, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have any magical skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he immediately loses control of the fiend fire.
Because he doesn't pay attention in class. Like, he has the ability, but not the learning.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But also, like, I'm pretty sure Harry and Neville fail potions regularly, and that Dumbledore's just like, well, they passed all their other classes, so just move them on up.
And I think also, like, Dumbledore knows, like, how much Snape is prejudiced against certain students, so I think he probably, like, when Snape fails students, he's kind of like, like,
what did they
I
fail?
take that with a big grain of salt, like.
Yeah.
Right. Like, Severus, did you fail them because they're bad at potions, or did you fail them because you had the hots for their mother? Like, be honest.
Or did you fail them for, you know, not being able to stand up to your constant tyranny?
Yeah. But Sierra, to your questions, so yes, people get held back. No, there isn't summer school, because we know the castle is just completely closed in the summer, because Tom Riddle asks to stay at Hogwarts during the summer, and, like, you know, if there was a teacher and, like, 4 students there, then they'd be like, sure, Tom Riddle, come hang out.
Well, what if they need to do a class and, like, you could do, like, at home. I'm just thinking, like, at home schooling. Like, Professor McGonagall just, like, hangs out at your house and is like, if you don't transfigure this, you're not going back.
Well, it could be something like, okay, study on your own over the summer, try the exams again in the fall. Or, you know, we see that, like, Harry theoretically has remedial potions and, like, that, so there is the possibility of, like, having, and, like, Crabbe and Goyle have whatever, you know, thing with Snape where he's, like, trying to get them to pass their exams another time. So it might be like, yeah, your teachers for whatever class will have, like, remedial classes with you.
But yeah, so, like, really good questions, actually. The one I don't have answers for is, do they give up and kick you out? So my understanding is that you need to pass your OWLs, right, to just, like, enter society.
Right.
But after your OWLs, you are free to drop out. Like, I think sort of our equivalent is, like, schooling is, like, compulsory up until age 16, but, like, you don't have to graduate high school, at least in the US. So, I mean, I imagine that, like, you know, you pass, like, an OWL by hook or by crook, and then at, like, age 22, you're like, all right, no, I'm taking my 2 OWLs and going to drive the night bus. I give up.
Are you claiming that Ernie has not passed his OWLs?
I am not
Or
claiming
barely.
that. However, Stan Shunpike, I think, did not, because he did not attend Hogwarts. So, yeah. I think Stan was homeschooled and it didn't take. But yeah, interesting stuff. Let's get into what all they're actually studying.
Yeah, I thought some of these were pretty interesting, especially the one that really jumped out to me is Harry's looking up Dittany in 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, which is a very important herb that we hear about.
Yeah. I mean, once you mentioned it, there's so much stuff in this chapter specifically that comes back in Deathly Hallows. It's part of the, like, book 1-7 parallel of it all. Because, they're studying Dittany, which is all over Deathly Hallows. Like, you know, it's being used to heal people left, right, and center. But also, same thing with the 12 uses of dragon's blood that I think Leah brought up. Like, this is, you know, when we first hear about it, when Hermione is studying it, and then it becomes, like, a whole plot point in Deathly Hallows, because other people are trying to claim credit and being like, no, I discovered it and Dumbledore stole it from me. Though, I will say the only confirmed use we have of dragon's blood is oven cleaner. We don't know the other 11.
Disguising your room when you're hiding from Death Eaters.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually very helpful because cleaning an oven is hard.
I wouldn't know. One would have to use an oven first before needing to clean it.
We do know that they were ideated, though, by the author. Like, the other 11, whatever they are out there somewhere, because apparently she sent them to Steve Kloves when he asked.
Yeah.
So I'd be very curious as to why Pottermore has not, or, you know, whatever they call it these days, it's not published yet.
in the Harry Potter encyclopedia that, we're definitely going to get one day.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the other 1-7 ring is Norbert, him or herself. Since, it's only in Deathly Hallows that we get the, Norbert is Norberta reveal. And that's, when Charlie shows up, because, Charlie's part of the, 1-4-7 ring. That is the only time he is in any way relevant to anything.
Oh, Charlie's part of that, too. So I knew dragons were. We don't see dragons other than the baby in 1, the full size in 4, and then the elder, quote-unquote, dragon in Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, but same with Charlie Weasley.
But I didn't realize Charlie. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah, the 1-4-7 ring is a really clear one. Which, can I just say, bit of a story time. So, I was in Japan with some friends recently, one of whom is, a very casual Potter fan. He's, seen the movies and read, I think most of the books once. And I don't remember how it came up, but, this whole, ring structure, chiastic structure thing came up. And he was like, oh, what is it? And I was like, well, books 1, 4, and 7, 2, 4, and 6 all match each other. And he's like, really? And then he just spends 2 hours just coming up with examples from his, rudimentary knowledge of Harry Potter, as I was, packing up, to go from the trip. And I was like, wow, it's, so in your face that even the, most casual fans can just churn out examples once they know to look for it. So, yeah, it's very much a thing in the series.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
Props to him. He sounds like a cool guy.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's good people.
Yeah.
But while they're studying, Ron is, lamenting this, I'll never remember all this crap. And then, when the conversation turns to dragon breeding, Ron just sort of, starts spitting facts and dates. He's like, but it's against our laws. Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709. Everyone knows that. and I'm like, huh? So Josie Kearns, over at the Harry Potter Companion, pointed this out, that, she says, there aren't many laws for which I can recite their origins off the top of my head. And those I can, they're certainly all more applicable to my life than a law forbidding something I never do anyway. And even then, I probably didn't know those laws when I was 11. So, where does he come up with it? And Josie's theory is that Ron is just, trying to show off for Hermione here. And maybe he's a better student than we think. But then all the commenters pointed out that, no, it's probably from Charlie.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Can't you just see, Charlie at the bar, someone being like, oh my god, are you gonna, make new dragon breeds? Can you imagine, a Norwegian viper tooth? And Charlie's like, no, doofus, dragon breeding was outlawed by the convention of 1709. Come on.
Yeah, and to me it speaks to the fact that, even though we don't see Charlie that much, he was a big part of Ron's upbringing, and, Ron, probably looks up to Charlie a lot, because Charlie is cool. Charlie, amazing Quidditch player, going off to, wrangle with dragons. I can totally imagine young Ron, hanging on to every word that comes out of Charlie's mouth and remembering it to impress him. So I don't think he's impressing Hermione. I think he's impressing Charlie by remembering these things.
100%. But yeah, it's the everyone knows that I find so funny. Because, I was thinking, I think there are literally, 2 laws in the United States that everyone knows, which I think are the First and Second Amendment. Freedom of speech, right to bear guns.
Well, and even then, this is off topic, but even then, there are 5 specific freedoms that the First Amendment gives you, and, most people can't name more than 2.
Okay, wait, hold on. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly.
And then the other one's not a freedom of.
What's the 5th?
It's worded differently, so people tend to forget it. But you're doing better than my uncle has this whole thing where he challenges Congress, basically, different. He'll go to like things and be like, if you can name all 5 things, I'll donate to your campaign. And he has only had one. Be able to give him all 5.
Oh my god, that is genius.
That was savage. But the year, though, like, do you guys know the year, the amendments? Like, that part throws me. It's almost like...
I mean, I know around. I know it was like the 1790s.
Like, not only did Ron know the law, he knew the specific convention and the specific year.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what? Like, half of me is like, if he is, I like the idea that someone put in here that he's showing off for Hermione, because, like, maybe he just, like, pulled this out of his butt. Like, it wasn't even... like a real thing.
No,
I don't think so.
You say it with enough
He knows better
confidence.
because Hermione would call him on that. Like, can you not picture Hermione being like, Ron, there was no Warlocks Convention in 1709 because that's when the cockatrice was rampaging. Obviously, they had to skip that year, and it was in 1710. Like,
that's true.
Don't make up facts with Hermione around. It would not work.
I think that, like, this really sounds like a kid who's repeating something that someone else said, as in, like, Charlie would say, like, Charlie would say all this stuff and be like, everyone knows that. And then Ron was like, okay, everyone knows that, so I have to memorize this so I don't embarrass myself. And that he's just, like, repeating that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like, the specifics of it are amazing because, like, you know, it's such a niche field. Like, you know, it's kind of like if I go being like, well, depreciable lifetimes were changed by the tax code overhaul of 1986 under Reagan. Everyone knows that. And you would all be like, well, of course, Norbert, we all know that.
Or it could be like, oh, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Like, maybe it was like a wizarding little thing.
Right, yeah, it's like, you know, like, yeah, well, the Declaration of Independence was July 4th, 1776. Like, you know, we can pull that date out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but, like, it is interesting. And this is, I think it's another 1-7 parallel, because in 7 is when Ron also starts pulling, like, facts out of his, well, somewhere, where he's like, well, at the Room of Requirement, he's like, well, food is one of the 5 exemptions to Gamp's Law of Elemental Transfiguration. And everyone just looks at him shocked. So yeah, I think when he is listening to someone he deeply cares about, he does retain information.
Yeah.
He just does not care about Professor Binns, unfortunately.
Right. And that's such a, like, romantic moment in a way that it's like, oh, wow, like, Ron, like, cared enough about what Hermione had to say that he, like, memorized it and now is, like, I don't know, it's just very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we see Hagrid up to no good, checking out dragon books, which makes you wonder what Madame Pince thinks about it all.
Yeah, there's no way she doesn't know, like, what he's looking at or checking out. But also, I have to imagine that Hagrid, being who he is, probably looks at weird books about random creatures somewhat regularly. Even before, and that's kind of, like, probably what makes him, I mean, because he's taking care of everything in the forest as gamekeeper. So, like, he has to be randomly checking out different books on different magical creatures. So it probably doesn't raise any red flags with her, I would have to imagine. But, you know, maybe the fact that there are no dragons in the forest she might raise an eyebrow.
As far as she knows, and as far as we know.
Yeah.
Like, there aren't any acromantulas in the forest either, as far as we know.
The thing is, like, I kind of think that, like, this is maybe not the first time that Hagrid has even taken out books on dragons, because I can just imagine him wanting to just, like, look at books on dragons. But, like, because he actually has a dragon and he's terrible at, like, lying, he's just acting super suspicious right now. Like, he probably in the past took out books on dragons without, like, any, like, self-consciousness about it, just been like, oh, I just want to look at some dragons. And now he's just, like, acting so suspicious that, like, he can't.
Totally.
The way he's acting, too, is just, like, I think we start to really get more drops of his character, parts of it that I don't like. So, like, I don't know, the first... No, but when he's in the library, he's, like... I'm, like, picture very clearly, like, he's described to be holding the book behind his back, which is, like, such a childish...
The most obvious.
thing. Yeah, like, you don't see adults doing that, like, ever. And so it just really paints the picture of him as being just like this, I don't know, like incapable sort of juvenile, like just not, I don't know.
Well, I think this chapter is really sort of where his relationship with the trio changes from, like, you know, he's the adult, they're the children, to they're the adults, he's the child. Which, like, that's really not a switch you want to happen when the kids are 12. But, like, yeah, very much, like, you know, the kids are like, Hagrid, you live in a wooden house. And he's like, look at them. And I think that is also the part where I begin to dislike him, because, yeah, like, you know, up until this point, he's sort of been the adult, like the one good, helpful, caring adult in Harry's life. And up to this point, you're like, oh my god, Hagrid's the best. Like, we're ride or die for Hagrid. And then I think this is kind of where it changes.
Yeah, they have to, like, start cleaning up his quote-unquote mess. It pretty much is, this would be the first case. I relate it to, like, in the real world, like, if, like, a kid found a puppy on the side of the street and now, like, you have to be the adult and, like, deal with what happens to this puppy that you can't keep.
Yeah, except here, you know, the child who wants the puppy is, you know, twice as tall as a regular man and 70 years old. So maybe should know better.
Much higher stakes, yes.
But yeah, we also see where, like, you know, Hermione is trying to be the adult and is also trying to manipulate Hagrid.
Which is one of the... I think it's, like, Hermione understanding exactly how to deal with a person is kind of a rarity.
Out of character.
Like, she obviously knows a lot, but, like, being able to pinpoint, like, if I flatter Hagrid right here and I kind of like, oh, we just want to know who he trusted besides you, of course. Like, the fact that she understands that is going to get her what they're looking for is... There's not very many times where that happens. And so I think it's a very, I like this little hint of her being devious here. But it is interesting that this is, like, one of the only times that she really, like, can pinpoint what will get her what she needs.
So I really kind of want to push back on this, because I was surprised when I saw it in the notes. Because in my mind, Hermione has a fantastic ability to read people. Like, you know, she's usually the one explaining to the boys, being like, well, like, this is what people are feeling. Like, this is, like, you know, what they want. This, like, when they said that, this is what they meant. So I think she's actually very good at understanding people and sort of, like, knowing what they want and where they're coming from.
Well, but I don't think she knows what to do with that information, is my point. It's like,
I don't think
like, she can understand that, but then when she's actually faced with, like, okay, now how do I talk to them to exactly get what I need? Because I'm just thinking of, like, with Lockhart, like, they're like, Hermione, we need to get the book out of the restricted section. Just go. He'll sign anything. Just go. And she's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to work. And she gets all, like, flustered about it. And I'm sure that part of that is because she's totally. I know that that's part of it. But also, like, she doesn't think that that's going to work. And the boys are like, literally go and put a piece of paper in front of him. And then she does. And then she's like, you know, I mean, and then she gets all flustered because she wants to keep it, which I think is kind of adorable. But
I think a counterexample, like in that example, I think it's like she doesn't want to see Lockhart for who he really is. Like, I think she is, like, sort of intentionally blind to his character in a way that she isn't usually with most people. But I think that one really strong counterexample would be, like, when she is hurt by Ron dating Lavender, and she takes Cormac McLaggen to the Slug Club, like, Christmas party. Yes.
And I only date really good
exactly
Quidditch players.
She knows exactly what is going to hurt Ron the most. And yeah, when Parvati is like, oh, you have a thing for Quidditch players, she's like, for really good Quidditch players. And, like, ooh, that's brutal, because she knows that, like, this is something that Ron is really insecure about, and she just, like, twists that little knife.
Yeah. But also, I have an example that's sort of, I think, a bit more applicable in terms of, like, she's manipulating an adult and whatever. Umbridge, in the whole Out of the Fire sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Like when, Umbridge and her Inquisitorial squad capture them, and Hermione, like on the spot, just comes up with this whole scheme where she's like, oh, like, we were trying to get to Dumbledore, to get the weapon, because she knows that's what Umbridge wants to hear. And then she manipulates Umbridge into removing them from the situation where Umbridge has all the power. She manipulates her into not taking the Inquisitorial squad, where she's like, good, take them. I hope they all use this weapon on you. Like, she plays Umbridge like a fiddle in that scene.
That's a good point.
I would say that Hermione is not naturally a good liar, in that, like, what we see with her, like, okay, when she goes into, like, the Borgin and Burkes, she is a terrible liar, but she doesn't know Borgin. So it's like, I think when she knows someone, then she knows how to play them. But when she doesn't
when she's been able to study.
She studies them, she studies their character, and then she knows how to play them. But, like, with Borgin, she's so much worse of a liar than Harry or Ron would have been in that situation, because they're good at just, like, they get in trouble and, like, they're good at just, like, okay, we gotta talk ourselves out of this. We gotta, or, like, let's just jump into this without planning. Whereas she's a planner. She's like she has to understand someone to be able to come up with a good lie.
Yeah. I'd also say, in a rebuttal to the fact that she doesn't do this as often, is I don't think she necessarily has situations where she would. Like, I'm thinking through the books, I think there aren't a lot of situations that I can think of where Hermione, like, would have wanted to, manipulate someone and, like, didn't or couldn't. I think her preferred strategy is, like, arguing it out with someone. Like, think, like, Xenophilius Lovegood. Like, could she have manipulated Xenophilius? 100%, like, without, breaking a sweat. But I think Hermione vastly prefers to be like, no, I am right, and let me explain to you with a PowerPoint why I am right. So I don't think it's that she doesn't have the ability. I think it's not her preferred modus operandi.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see how uncomfortable she gets, maybe the movies are affecting this, but, like, in Deathly Hallows, another example, when she's pretending to be Bellatrix, she seems uncomfortable doing that, right? But she does it. She's successful,
Well, it's also slightly different. I think she's a terrible actress. I think she's good at lying and manipulating, but in terms of, like, completely playing a character, that is not in her skill set.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it works here, but her audience is pretty, low bar, I guess.
Yeah, that's also true. Like, Hagrid and Umbridge, like, not the sharpest knives in the drawer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
Or just, like, wouldn't even, like, expect it, maybe, like, for different reasons. Like, Umbridge being so confident that, like, no one would even dare, and then Hagrid just being so trusting that, like, no one would think that way.
We actually get a slightly smaller scale manipulation a few chapters from this, when she manipulates Flitwick. Because like, put her to, like, guard the, professor's lounge and make sure Snape doesn't go anywhere, And she's like, oh, Professor Flitwick, I wanted to know about my exam, and, I was so worried about question 14B.
I feel like, though, that's just her telling the truth. Like, there's no manipulation there. She legitimately is worried about her exam in question 14.
2 birds, 1 stone. She's like, actually...
The best performances are based in a kernel of truth.
Right. But I also feel like she probably got a little maybe too swept up in that, and therefore lost sight of Snape.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that she's being very devious here, when that, as you have said, is not her modus operandi in general. So, like, when she is being this, like, very kind of devious, manipulative person, it's not her normal. And so it just stands out to me when she does do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
But she does get some good information out of Hagrid here.
Yeah. One of the, bits of data that they get from Hagrid is a list of the professors who protected the stone, right? Mm-hmm. And this always weirded me out. So the way Hagrid lists the professors, right, where he's like, I'm just going to get the order here. So he says, Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall, Professor Quirrell, and then, hang on, I've forgotten someone. Oh yeah, Professor Snape. So I know the fact that, Snape goes last, it's very much a dramatic effect. He's like, I've forgotten someone. Oh, Snape! Dun, dun, dun! I get it from, a Doylist perspective, but I always found it weird that Snape would be the outlier in the mental list, because, at least the way I think about the professors, wouldn't you lump the 4 heads of houses in your mind together? Wouldn't you be like, who guarded the stone? Well, the 4 heads, so McGonagall, Snape, Flitwick, Sprout, and Quirrell. So yeah, my question is is Hagrid mentally organizing the professors some other way here? Because I found it very odd.
Okay, this just came to me. What if he's organizing them in order of respect? Or how much he likes them.
Really? You think McGonagall is that low on the list, considering he kisses her in Prisoner of Azkaban?
I think that he respects her, but maybe he feels more of an affinity for Flitwick and Sprout. They're a little bit more on the quirky side, not so strict. But a little bit more of a fun-loving personality from what we see. So maybe he's just more closely friends with them, because we don't really know who on the staff he's friends with.
I mean, I can see him having a very good rapport with Sprout. I think it definitely makes sense she'd be first by that ranking.
So isn't the list just in the order that the different things are?
I just the different that too.
Trials.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
You know what? If you're just going to have sensible and logical answers like that, why are we even here?
I'm sorry, Irvin. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But yeah, Snape is the last one.
Yeah, because it's the last one, and he probably doesn't know what the final chamber's like. So and I don't know, knowing Hagrid, he's probably there's a troll in there, and that's very distracting.
Yeah. Okay, I retract my question.
Yeah, I retract my getting to know Hagrid more.
Well done.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's fair.
Fine. But here's the more interesting thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Hagrid might be right about Snape not trying to steal the stone. However, his reasoning, dead wrong. Completely the opposite of factuality. His reasoning that he's one of the ones protecting the stone, he won't try to steal it, is completely not correct. But
it's so stupid. Hagrid is dumb. Y'all, he's so dumb.
He trusts too easily.
He is very trusting.
Yeah. He's trusting in Dumbledore to pick the right people. He's trusting in his coworkers to not be dodgy. I don't necessarily know that this is a dumb thing here, because I think it's just a trusting thing.
I disagree, because if he trusts Snape, then he would have said as such. If you think Snape's not trying to steal it because you trust Snape, you say so. That's what Dumbledore always says. Whenever Harry's like, well, how sure are you that, Snape's on your side? Dumbledore's like, well, I'm sure because I only hire good teachers. Dumbledore's like, I trust Severus Snape. The fact that Hagrid actually tries to come up with reasoning for it, where he's like, well, no, it can't be because Snape tried to protect it and he's a teacher. Yeah, I'm going to say dumb.
So I hear it more not... okay, Hagrid doesn't have any reason to trust or distrust Snape, but is saying, I trust Dumbledore, as in Dumbledore would not pick people to guard the stone who are not trustworthy. So if I trust Dumbledore and Dumbledore trusts them, then therefore I trust them.
But that's not what he says. That's what Lupin says in Half-Blood Prince, and it's a very effective argument.
No, I know, but what he says is basically the same thing.
Hagrid's not as articulate as Dumbledore and Lupin.
Yeah, he says basically the same thing.
He's not going to work through that.
He says,
out loud
they're a teacher and they're guarding the stone, and basically what he means by that, at least how I'm reading it, is he means Dumbledore wouldn't have people who are untrustworthy guarding the stone or as teachers at Hogwarts.
No.
Which turns out to be wrong. Which turns out to be wrong, but that's how I read it, is what he's saying.
I read it that way as well. That's what he's saying. He's saying there's an inherent trust. The fact that they were chosen to guard the stone is the inherent trust that they're not going to be doing anything shady.
Well, I will never agree with a charitable reading of Hagrid, so we'll just have to agree to disagree.
All right, we'll move on then.
Moving on.
So, this is... Honestly, Ron is really on fire in this chapter. Like, the more I went through, the more I was like... I like Ron so much in the first book. It's such a shame what happens to his character afterwards. But when he's like, wonder what it's like to have a peaceful life, Ron sighed. And I just read this and I was like, my dude, you will never know.
It's true.
Yeah.
Something about that line makes me feel like one of them says it later on in the series, like a very similar sentiment. Like,
Harry, when I think Mrs. Weasley is telling Harry to like be careful and watch himself, he's like, I will, Mrs. Weasley. I like a quiet life. You know that.
Yeah.
Which I know because I use that quote on a very regular basis, with largely the same reaction. But yeah, it's a fantastic line.
So then the trio are talking about what they've, now learned from Hagrid and assume about Hagrid having a dragon. And I have to say, with all the conversations that they overhear on a regular basis, you think that they would be a little bit better about knowing when it is a good time to speak about private things, and that maybe in the middle of a corridor with Draco Malfoy standing 5 feet away is probably not the best plan. But yeah, they this blows my mind because it's like they are often the ones overhearing other people. And so the fact that they are like succumbing to their own like exploitation is a little, it irks me.
So I really liked that he brought it up because I think this is an ongoing thing that they are working on and learning throughout the series. Learning sort of how to have conversations where people don't overhear and learning to be circumspect in that. I remember in Order of the Phoenix when they have, the initial DA meeting at the Hog's Head, and of course everyone knows about it. And when Sirius tells them off, when he's like, you guys should have gone to the Three Broomsticks because they have an amazing podcast. I mean, because it's so crowded and noisy and no one would overhear you. So I think, this is part of them being like, 11 and 12 and being like, well, surely no one is listening to us. We only listen to them. And yeah, they're learning to finesse it as they go.
Yeah, and also it speaks to the fact that there aren't that many private places at Hogwarts. And the fact that they are of different genders means they can't, only occasionally can they be, inside the same dorm room at the same time without anyone else there. And, even places that are, there just aren't that many private places. In the second book, they find, Moaning Myrtle's toilet, and, that is just their spot because they're nobody else will go here. But, there aren't that many places at Hogwarts that nobody else will go to.
Well, it's not necessarily that nobody else will go to, but it's that nobody else is currently in. Just walk into an empty classroom that's got to be 5 feet away from you. There's doors and passages and whatever, all over the place. All they have to do is just step inside a separate passage or another hallway that doesn't have people standing right there.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, they don't really use empty classrooms
that
much.
In terms of, secretive places, sure, I'll give you that for sure. But, just if I want to have a private conversation with somebody, I'm not speaking at normal volume with other people 5 feet away. I will step away or walk into a different room or close a door.
Yeah, there's
yeah, me too. I definitely don't just gossip loudly wherever I happen to be. Totally same. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So yeah, then after they, blow it with Malfoy, things start to ramp up because then they actually get to see a baby dragon hatching, which would be so cool. I feel like that experience in and of itself would be, I mean, like Ron says in it, like, we're never going to see this again. Like, how often do you get to see a dragon hatch? That would be so cool.
That is one of the better parts of Ron's personality. He's aware, like, it's not I don't know what that is, but, like, he's just, yeah, he's like, when else are we going to see this, Hermione? Like, obviously, come on, like, zoom out. This matters.
I also think this might be like another Charlie callback where, you know, he heard Charlie talking about dragons. Charlie's probably seen dragons hatching and, you know, talked about it being like it was the most amazing thing. We just saw him come out of the egg. It was also magical. Like, I could see Ron hearing about a dragon egg hatching and being like, oh my God, this is like a amazing once in a lifetime thing that we absolutely can't miss. Like, yeah, I think sort of the more I think about it and the more I dive into this chapter, the more I'm realizing, like, how much, like, Ron admires and listens and wants to be like Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think there's something, it's interesting that, like, he's like, what would it be like to have a peaceful life? But also then he's clearly like, I only get one life. I want to, like, fill it with adventure. Like, I want to fill it with, you know, going and seeing dragon hatchings. And, like, I don't know, there is something interesting about, he's like, yeah, this is a choice that I am, they could choose not to be involved in this whole dragon thing, but they want to be, like, they want to have that experience.
And that's why he's a Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron. Yeah. That trait, I think.
But once the dragon is hatched, and we now have a baby dragon in a wooden house, we just get to see how Rubeus Hagrid is the absolute fucking worst. So when his illegal dragon bites the 12-year-old boy who is helping him, when it bit me, he told me off for frightening it, according to Ron. Which, like, really is, I think, one of Hagrid's least admirable traits, which is saying a lot. But basically, he cares more for the well-being of whatever monster du jour he has, you know, whatever horrible, like, thing he's taking care of, than for the well-being of his human friends. Like, we see this with Norbert, we see this with Grop, we see this with the spiders. Like, he just doesn't care about the children who he's befriended staying in one piece as much as he does his monsters.
I don't want to get into this, but I do.
I have an argument that, like, I agree with the sort of, that there is some blindness there, but, like, I don't think it's that he doesn't care about Ron, but I'd say, like, you know, there is a certain extent to which, like, often, you know, like we see with Buckbeak, you know, like, animals act in a certain way. Like, if you do certain things, they will attack, or they might attack, or whatever. And, like, I think he has a certain understanding of, like, you have to be careful about how you act around animals because, like, if they do try to defend themselves, that's not, like, really their fault. Like, that's kind of just how they act. So I don't think, like, if we think about this, like, as a dog, and, like, sometimes kids will, like, go right up to a dog and just, like, go all in its face and whatever, and then it, like, snaps at them. Like, you might say to the kid, like, you might get annoyed with the kid and be like, don't go and scare the dog. Like, that's your fault. And we don't know everything that happened, but, like, I don't think he's necessarily wrong for being like,
that's not how you act around an animal.
You know,
yeah.
Don't do this. Like, this is not how you act around this animal. But also, like, yes, he shouldn't have that animal around the kids at all. So, like, that is, you know, those sort of blindness there, you know?
I totally agree that I think Hagrid is viewing it as a human should have more sense than the animal. Also, on top of that, all of these examples that you've given, the spiders, Grop, Norbert, Hagrid feels like he is their parent. And so it's like not just a random animal, but all of these are like he feels a personal responsibility over those creatures and over his brother, that he needs to take care of him. He needs to take care of Aragog. He is the caretaker. He is the parent. Even with Norbert, it's very obvious. Like he knows his mummy. Like he thinks that he has the affinity that this is his child, and he's
but that thing,
a mom.
He needs to be aware that he's the parent here for Ron.
But he doesn't just have a responsibility to them, he has responsibility for them if he's the parent. And I'm sorry, if your child with enormous poisonous fangs bites someone and nearly takes off a limb, I feel like you should be concerned about whoever was bitten.
Yes, I'm not arguing that he shouldn't be. I'm saying to tack on to what Sophia was saying, there's a whole backstory of why Hagrid acts the way that he does, and then it's not completely not understandable. Now, should he have checked in and maybe done something about the bite that Ron got? Yes. But I think that everything else is logical. I don't think that it's completely out of the question for him to back to the example of a dog biting a kid. Yes, you're probably going to tell the kid off, especially if they're 12, for frightening the dog, getting too close to the dog, whatever. But if the dog actually did bite the kid, you are going to check on that bite.
Yeah, basically the dog is the size of the kid with poisonous fangs, because he apparently knows about dragons, knows their fangs are poisonous. So if this 6-foot dog bit a kid who was now bleeding profusely from a poisoned wound, I feel like you want to check in on the kid before telling them off.
That's what I was going to say. It's more tactful to do the telling off, to educate the kid on how to behave, because after dealing with it, not the first thing you say after he gets bit. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit lacking in tact. But I see where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a potential that Hagrid didn't realize, because Norbert could have snapped at him and actually bitten him, and then Hagrid doesn't realize that he's actually been bitten. And who knows what Ron did? He probably immediately pulled his hand away and hid it. He's not standing there with his hand. I've seen plenty of children get hurt, and their instinct is to withdraw and bring that into themselves. They're not standing in front of the thing that just bit them, holding it out and being look at this bite. And I feel like Ron would probably, because he comes back so upset and so angry, he probably was just I'm out, and just left, and potentially I'm not giving Hagrid a complete way out. He should have checked in and he should have checked, but we also don't know the exact circumstances and how much Ron actually gave space for that to happen.
I cannot see Ron not exclaiming or letting it be known. He is very vocal and also, let's be honest, tactless. And so, he would not try to be oh, well, better skedaddle here if I got bit. No, he would exclaim loudly about Merlin's most baggy Y-fronts that he got bit. I cannot see him not vocalizing that fact.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it's harder for Hagrid to relate to other people's, humans' pain. This is completely, theory, but, if
he probably
spells
doesn't.
don't affect Hagrid as much, does a dragon bite hurt less than it would for, someone who isn't
probably?
I think so.
I have to imagine, yes. And I have to imagine that a dragon biting Hagrid is, no worse than a dog bite for, a normal, snap for a human.
And while that may be true, he still needs to have the wherewithal to. I don't think he does have the wherewithal to know that that's the case.
That it's different.
He needs to think about how other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's either too stupid to realize that a 12-year-old being bitten by a dragon is an issue, or he doesn't care. And, whichever one it is, it's not a good look.
Okay. I think it's just an awareness. I don't know that it's stupidity.
Yeah, I think that
He's naive.
often people don't,
Yeah.
like, if you've never had an experience, you're not always aware, which doesn't give you an excuse exactly, but it does, like, it's more just like an understanding of, like, just he has not experienced as much physical pain in his life because it just doesn't happen to him very often.
I've never broken a limb. But I feel like when I see someone fall and clutching their arm, yelling it's broken, I know enough to know that that's a problem for them, even if I haven't experienced it myself. Like, this is just basic stuff.
I mean, I think that the subtleties of, like, being bitten and having it not hurt for you, but it hurts for someone else is a little bit different. But anyway, we can move on.
Yeah.
Where's Oreo to referee when you need it?
But we don't have to worry about Norbert for too much longer because we have a plan. We have a plan that involves our new best friend, Charlie.
A plan, a canal.
Our new best friend, Charlie. Charlie for the win. And I'm just going to say, I would watch all of the seasons of a Charlie spinoff. I would watch so many things about that man living his life because he's great and we don't get enough of him. And he's going to help us out of this situation by sending his friends to come pick up the dragon. Oh, Siri thinks I'm talking to him. Siri thinks I'm talking to him. That's a problem.
Is your Siri named Charlie? How big a fan are you?
And it's not, but my Siri's very, very picky apparently and likes to respond even when I'm not saying anything about it.
Yeah.
Charlie is so present in this chapter without ever actually being present.
Which, in fairness, is a thing Jo does really well across the series. Like, and actually across all her books. Like, a lot of the times, there are characters who never show up, are in no way there, but still are a huge, like, important presence. Like, think Tom Riddle in Half-Blood Prince. Think Margot Bamborough in Troubled Blood. You know, even think like James and Lily throughout the series. So yeah, I think she's very, very good at like making you feel the importance of a character.
I think that distance is kind of why a lot of people do love Charlie so much. I agree. I would love like spin-offs with Charlie and stuff. I think part of it though is because he's sort of like dangled in front of us, like at arm's reach a lot.
True. We know just enough to be like, man, he's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So he is cool. And I'll preface this by saying I like Charlie very much. I think he's wonderful. He's great. But his plan that you say saves the day, well, it does scream teenage Gryffindor plan to me. Because his plan is, let's collect the dragon at the top of the tallest tower, because that's cool and secret, and like that's how you execute awesome missions like this. And just floating an idea here. Would it not be better to have his friends fly to the wooden hut on the grounds at the edge of the forest, away from the castle holding 1,000 people inside, and maybe skip the part where a bunch of 12-year-olds carry an illegal dragon through the school, keeping in mind he doesn't even know they have an invisibility cloak?
Yeah.
It's not a great plan.
No, agreed.
I mean, I don't know that either of those are particularly a great plan. Like, yes, going to the hut does mean that children don't have to carry an illegal dragon. However, I can see in Charlie's mind him being like, they don't even have to touch down. They can just like fly up, hook the dragon up and speed away, like, and have it be kind of like a flyby situation instead of like 4 people arrive, land on the grounds, walk into a hut, come out, hook. Like, I just feel like, especially if you're looking through a window in the castle, you can see the hut. I don't know. I feel like just from what we've heard of people's view of the grounds from the castle, it's more obvious if people are walking around on the grounds than if they're up in a tower above you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, like, the pro of the Hagrid plan is, like, if it's Hagrid who has taken the risk of getting the dragon, it should be Hagrid who's taking the risk of being caught. And instead, like, the trio ends up being the ones who are punished. And that's partly, their choice, that they, they choose to take on the dragon as their responsibility and bring it to the top of the tower. They could have said, like, no, actually, please.
Like, good luck, have fun, get the dragon up there.
Yeah, like, they could have said to Hagrid, like, can you do this? We don't want to get in trouble. And I think he would have. But instead, they go to Hagrid and they're like, no, don't worry. I mean, we don't see the conversation, but I assume they're like, oh, no, don't worry. Like, we have an invisibility cloak. We'll be fine. We can do it. And he's like, okay, cool.
It's part of the adult-child thing. Like, they view themselves as the adults in the situation, taking care of their errant half-giant kid. And so they're like, well, of course, as the adults, we will do this thing and take care of the situation and get the dragon out. I
mean, I guess what I would say is, like, I agree that Hagrid should not let them act like the adult in this situation, but it's also, like, they kind of choose to act like the adult. Like, Hagrid knows the risk he's taken by bringing Norbert. Like, it's a dumb risk, but he was willing to take on that risk on his own. And they sort of come in and they are like, oh no, we can't let you take on that risk because then you might be fired or, get in legal trouble. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, like, make sure that this doesn't happen.
Yeah, they kind of take on the burden
Hagrid
themselves.
kind of, like, they take on the burden. Like, Hagrid, knew that was his risk. And, like, yeah, it was dumb that he didn't think it through, but, like, that was his choice. And they kind of decide to take on the parenting role. And, like, Hagrid does let them, which I think he shouldn't. Mm-hmm. But it is still, like, it is their choice.
Hagrid getting Norbert and keeping that, it's super short-sighted. I have a question, though, that I would be curious for your guys' opinion on. Do you think, because I don't think there's any textual evidence to say either way, but do you think Dumbledore knew about Norbert?
I mean,
I can see him.
Like, would Hagrid have told him?
I don't think in the moment. I can see that maybe being something that maybe came up afterwards, because I can see Hagrid maybe, like, once he finds out about what happened with the stone and how Quirrell went to go whatever, I can see him confessing to Dumbledore potentially. But I don't think in the moment.
See, I was going to say, I think after Norbert's gone, then Dumbledore finds out. Because I think Dumbledore suddenly gets a tale of McGonagall coming to him saying, do you know that Harry Potter told Draco Malfoy that they have a dragon? Draco tried to tattle to me. I end up with 4 first years out of bed at 2 a.m. This castle is falling apart. Anarchy is reigning. It's like the Marauders again, and I am not having it, Dumbledore. I tell you, not having it. And I think after he gets that report from McGonagall, I think he starts putting 2 and 2 together. He's like, wait. Illegal dragons? It doesn't seem like a thing Harry would make up. And, well, if there's an illegal dragon and Harry's involved, like, where's the illegal dragon coming from? And he's like, it says Hagrid's been neglecting his headmaster duties, right?
His gamekeeper duties.
Groundskeeper duties, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think immediately after this episode, Dumbledore puts 2 and 2 together. And we know Dumbledore gets involved because he returns the invisibility cloak and everything from the top of the tower.
Yeah. I think Dumbledore knows. My argument, though, is that I think Professor McGonagall knows. I don't think that Dumbledore was the one who put it together. I think that Professor McGonagall knew that the tale about the dragon was true, and that when she took the points away from them and she says, like, oh, you just told this tale, like, to Draco, and you don't even care that Neville heard it. Like, I think that she is saying that so that Neville doesn't realize that the dragon tale was true. I think that she was doing that in order to protect Hagrid.
Interesting.
Then that would imply Dumbledore already knew. maybe, too. Because if McGonagall knew, then...
No, not necessarily. I think that, like, McGonagall hears... Like, McGonagall catches Draco and Neville, and they both are, like... You know, Draco is saying, oh, they're taking a dragon, Hagrid has a dragon, whatever, and McGonagall's like, yeah, that sounds about right. But she's not going to say that to Draco. And then hears that Neville has heard the same thing and is like, yeah, this is probably true. And so then when she catches them later on in the night, she intentionally does not ask them about the dragon story. She just assumes that it's false. But I believe that that's not that she's assuming it's false. It's that she doesn't want it to get out that that's what happened. And that's why she phrases it like that. And also I think it's why she takes so many points away from them, is not just because they were out of bed, but also because they, you know, got involved in this dumb dragon thing. And yeah, so I think that she knew, and then she went to Dumbledore or Hagrid, I don't know who she went to first, and was like, I think that this is what's going on here.
Interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah, I kind of don't have an argument for it either way. That's totally plausible. Huh.
Yeah, I like that take.
Yeah. I like that. Another person who should know what's going on, though, after Ron gets bitten is Madame Pomfrey.
Oh, the poor woman.
The poor woman. I do not envy her having to treat all of the BS that kids get into just in general, and then also add magic, and then also add illegal things. Like, that poor woman and her job must be so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like thinking Chamber of Secrets, like mending bones is easy, growing them back is like harder. She must have that all the time where she's like, you know, oh, a kid did something to his friend and then they try to fix it because they don't want to get in trouble. And then they just make it worse. And then she's got to handle that.
Yeah.
That'd be horrible.
And I wonder kind of like, okay, I don't think that there is really like as much of a like wizarding HIPAA laws kind of, but I wonder if she sort of sees herself as like part of her role as like the nurse is like, I am not going to share medical information about a student unless it's necessary for like teachers or headmasters to know.
I think that's absolutely true because like, if she didn't, then the kids wouldn't come to her, like, you know, to begin with. And she's like, it is so much less work if you come here first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I think that, like, yeah, if there's something really, really bad, then she'll go to, you know, Dumbledore or whoever. But I think, yes, for the average illegal thing that a kid does, she's like, okay, I'm not going to ask too many questions and I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just going to fix it.
Yeah.
And, like... Oh, we've been talking Ron up a lot this chapter, but, like, this is not one of his brighter moments where he says it's a dog bite.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, first of all, I imagine that a dog bite would be fixed by Madame Pomfrey in about a second.
Yeah.
Second, I know a dog bite is less illicit than a dragon bite, but where the hell is he supposed to have found a dog to bite him? Like,
he's still getting Hagrid in trouble.
Like, that's the only dog around here. And also, Madame Pomfrey knows Fang. She knows Fang wouldn't bite him.
That's true. Maybe Fluffy. maybe.
Oh, yeah, because three-headed dog is...
She's like, oops, I guess Ron didn't listen to the headmaster telling him not to go in the third floor corridor.
It's such a magical-looking wound. You would expect more than just, you know, a dog.
Yeah.
To have caused it. Unless Ron is just so out of touch with Muggleverse magic wounds, which is totally plausible based on Order of the Phoenix, but...
Yeah, no, Madame Pomfrey, she is earning her salary and then some.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, I wanted to go back to Charlie for a minute, because when Ron is in the hospital wing and the letter gets taken by Malfoy, the letter is actually interesting because Charlie signs it with "Love, Charlie," and that is like unusually sweet for the Weasley brothers. Like they're not a sentimental lot. Like Ron always signs his letters like "Bye, Ron," and. And I think Percy, like, signs his letter. He's like, your brother, Percy. So, like, this, is...
Sincerely.
Yeah, right, yeah. Warmest regards. Like, this seems unusual. And I'm wondering if it's because Charlie is away in Romania. And, okay, the timeline is completely f***ed. Like, Joe has no idea how old Charlie is or when he left for Romania. But... if we take her interview words, at face value, this is either his first or second year away from home in Romania. So, like, I imagine that Charlie's feeling, like, unusually fond towards his family right now. And he's like, oh, my baby brother wrote to me. He's like, love Charlie.
I can see that.
Didn't he graduate last year?
So age-wise,
right?
Yes, he graduated last year. But because everyone talks
like
about
18.
him being like, well, like, since Charlie Weasley, the lexicon theorizes that he did, like, his last year abroad, that he, like, went to a different school for his 7th year, or he did some kind of work study or whatever thing. Because, like, the way people talk, it really doesn't make sense that Charlie just graduated. But yeah, but age-wise, yes, he would have graduated last year, so that's why I say the timeline's a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I could imagine for Charlie, like, I don't know, I could imagine there's something, like, very exciting about your younger brother, like, starting at Hogwarts for the first time and, like, getting into shenanigans already, and you're just like, wow, like, those were the days. And yeah, so I think that there is a bit of, like, him being like, oh, that's so sweet, my brother got, like, got involved in this dragon, and, like, we already know that, like, Charlie and Hagrid get along well, so it's like, he's like, oh, he's made friends with Hagrid, and is getting involved in his shenanigans, like, cool. Like, that's how I grew to love dragons, was from getting involved in Hagrid loving dragons or something like that. Like, I feel like he'd be like, oh, this is so sweet. And, like, I don't know. And also I think speaks to, like, a pretty big age gap. I think sometimes allows for more of that, like, that, like, older brother, like, oh, my sweet little youngest brother, like, that you can be a little bit more loving, whereas I think sometimes when siblings are very close in age, they sometimes go through periods of being a bit more, like, bickering or,
Yeah. Yeah, but they're 7 years apart, so there's, like, a good gap there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, okay, so Malfoy gets the letter and concocts an evil plan, because he's an evil man.
Yes, evil man with an evil plan. But also, like, what was his plan? Like, okay, tip off Filch, sure. Like, totally makes sense of, like, yeah, let's get them in trouble. We know where they're going to be and when and all that stuff. So make sure that Filch is going to get them and then they'll be in trouble too. But, like, why is he also out of bed? Also, now that I'm thinking about it, why is he out of bed by himself? Like, wouldn't he bring his backup with him if he's going to be doing this? But, like, did he really not think that he was also he's literally sending Filch out to catch students out of bed. So did he not think that he would also be in trouble for being out of bed?
Ooh, pick me.
Yes, Irvin.
Okay, yeah. So I may have mentioned that my book about the Malfoys is getting published this October. So, yes. Everyone pick it up in bookstores because I go over this exact thing in chapter 1. But the short version is, Malfoy has always seen authority figures as his allies, as, like, people he can use as weapons to wield. Because basically he's seen that because of Lucius's, charitable giving and, donations to the right causes, like, all authority figures from the Minister of Magic on down, like, prostrate themselves before him and are like, yes, Mr. Malfoy, of course, Mr. Malfoy. So basically Draco expects the same preferential treatment, that is due a Malfoy. And Filch upheld that worldview. Like, when he went to Filch about the midnight duel, Filch was like, yes, of course, like, Malfoy kid, like, yeah, I'm gonna go find those kids and expel them. So when because Filch overlooked his behavior to try to catch a bigger prize. So basically, Draco expects the exact same thing from McGonagall, because at this point, he's known McGonagall less than a year. And, like, he's not in her house, so they haven't interacted outside of Transfiguration lessons. So, like, he doesn't know, and he figures, like, same thing. He's offering a 4-for-1 trade. He's like, well, I could get in trouble, or you can get, like, these 4 students in trouble, and also there's an illegal dragon involved, so, like, big trouble, not just out-of-bed trouble. So he thought that he'd get away with it and that she'd take the deal.
Well, but with Filch, he's not out of bed. He just tells them that it's going to happen. He doesn't go to the duel.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that was the whole point of the duel. But, like, I think that... like, the thing is, he wanted Filch to catch them, and Filch didn't catch them. And that was, like, frustrating for him, I think. So I think he might be like, well, I could do it better myself. Like, I could catch them myself and then bring them to Filch or whoever. Because he's like, wow, like, and also he doesn't think much of Filch. Like, he's using Filch, but he doesn't think much of him. So I could totally imagine Malfoy being like, I could do this better myself.
Yeah.
That's the only way it makes sense, because he needn't have been out of bed that night.
Right.
He could have just told Filch during the day, or McGonagall during the day, that tonight is the night.
But again...
They could have given him the letter, too.
But he thinks Harry would get away with it. Like, he knows Harry is good at evading teachers throughout the night. So yeah, I think that actually makes perfect sense. But what I found fascinating about this is the fact of who he chooses to target. Because he could have so easily, like, gotten Hagrid screwed, like, completely and totally. Like, if he had gone outside of, you know, the Hogwarts disciplinary system and just, like, told his father, being like, hey, father, Hagrid has an illegal dragon in his hut. Like, that's it, right? Like, Lucius goes to the minister shows up at the hut, oh, look, there's an illegal dragon, like, boom, bam, done, Hagrid's in Azkaban. But no, Malfoy doesn't choose to go after Hagrid. He bides his time to try to get the trio in trouble with this rather than Hagrid. Well, and I'm saying this makes sense because I don't think at this point he has a vendetta against Hagrid. Like, at this point, he has interacted with Hagrid all of, like, 2 hours in his life. It's the next chapter when that vendetta is going to begin, because basically Hagrid gets very shirty with him during the detention, where he's like, well, if you don't like it, then tough titties, pack your bags and get kicked out of Hogwarts. And I think that's when Draco is like, I will destroy him if it's the last thing I do. But this is pre-vendetta, so it's fascinating to me that he, like, you know, chose to hold out for the prize of getting the trio in trouble.
Yeah,
because I think, I mean, especially at this point, like, Draco's thing is like, well, you know, he's very about the respect, and, like, Harry disrespected him from the beginning and wouldn't be his friend, and is now associating with blood traders and muggleborns and whatever, instead of being with me, pure blood, who's awesome. And so I think, like, he just feels, he's like, my whole goal is to make sure that he regrets that decision. And so, like, yeah, it makes complete sense for him to not really care if Hagrid gets in trouble. But he's like, I'm sure when he, you know, knows that Harry, if he found out that Hagrid had a dragon, he'd probably be like, well, that's dumb. But because he finds out that Harry and Ron know that Hagrid has a dragon and are somehow involved in this whole dragon thing, he's like, aha, I can get you in trouble specifically. It's like, I have something against you, because it really is, like, only when it's personal for him. And then, as soon as Hagrid, like, butts heads with him and doesn't give him the respect he thinks that he deserves, that's when now he's like, you. So yeah, it is very, very interesting. But it's also totally tracks for like a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You are my enemy.
And I think
you.
Yeah. Until that, like speaking about Malfoy and authority, like before that detention, he's never had the experience of Hagrid like having authority over him, and I think that's really what he rankles against, and is Hagrid being in charge, and then like I think that's why he really butts heads with Hagrid once Hagrid becomes a teacher, because then Draco always has to like, you know, have Hagrid as an authority figure. So I think before that point, like he kind of thinks Hagrid is a joke, but he doesn't hate him in that way. He doesn't care that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
But Draco's foolish attempt to go to McGonagall leads to one of my absolute favorite exchanges in this entire series. I burst out laughing every time I read this, where they get up to the tower after seeing Draco in trouble with McGonagall. Hermione did a sort of jig. Malfoy's got detention. I could sing. Don't, Harry advised her.
So good.
I need to see this jig.
The funniest thing.
Yeah.
What is the jig that Hermione's doing? Like, I just can't even... It's...
Yeah.
I need someone to act it out.
Yes. Like, if they...
Things that should have been in the movies.
Like, if they don't put this into the TV show, I riot. It also shows, like, just how much Hermione dislikes Hagrid. Sorry, not Hagrid, Draco. Yeah, because, like...
Not wrong, though.
Yeah. Well, because similarly to Hagrid, like, the Draco-Hermione of it all isn't that personal yet. Like, it really gets personal in Chamber of Secrets with the Mudbloods and Murmurs chapter. But, like, at this point, Hermione has just had it with Draco. And, yeah. She's also a little out for blood. But, they make it to the top of the tower, and Charlie's friends show up to take the dragon. And can I just raise the issue of security at this school?
I think about this too. What?
So, to recap, a posse of adults whom no one knows just show up at the school, enter the school, to meet first-year students late at night, and there's nothing stopping them. There's nothing interfering with any of this going down. And what?
Yeah. I mean... And, like, okay, I assume that by, like, third year, when Sirius Black is, you know, on the loose, it's no longer possible to just fly onto Hogwarts grounds using a broom. But, like, the fact that up until that point it was, like, that's insane. Like, what is, like, like, it's supposed to be such a secure place. It's like, oh, yeah, safest place on Earth, whatever.
Safest place.
It's like, no.
Any Tom, Dick, or Stanley can just stroll in.
Yeah, it's...
Like, you know, we have the best safety measures in the world. They can only be foiled by broomsticks.
Which every wizard has and knows how to fly. Oh my god. Yeah, it is quite insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me this is like a very first book-ism.
Yeah.
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 I think there's like two things kind of happening here. One is like, it's a little bit of a, well, they haven't figured out how to get off the grounds, so we have to get someone on the grounds. But then also, like, potentially all of the little kinks of how the school works hasn't been fleshed out yet. And so this is, like, legitimately possible. Because I was even thinking, I'm like, well, maybe it's because they used to be students, so maybe the school still recognizes them as students or something like that.
But every wizard in the UK has been a student.
Exactly. But then that's the same issue. So, yeah, unless it's like, oh, well, you just left last year, question mark? I don't know. But there's also no, like... We would assume that they all come from Hogwarts because they're Charlie's friends that are going to visit him. And how else would he have met other students?
Well, I mean, if they work with Charlie in Romania, there's actually a decent chance they went to Durmstrang.
Well, he doesn't say that, though. He says that they're coming to visit him.
Oh, touche.
Yeah. So they have to be, like, UK residents who are going to go and visit Charlie after not seeing him however long it's been. But yeah, it's just... it's a rough little moment here.
This is one of the, like, most glaring things that really change as you get older and read these books. Because, like, when I read this at 9 years old, I was like, oh my god, yeah, so cool. Like, we snuck a dragon out of the school. Like, that's awesome. And then by the time I was reading it and I was, like, you know, in 20-ish, I was like, whoa, what? And listeners, here's a sneak peek for you. In a few episodes, we are going to be discussing safety and security at Hogwarts, or, well, the lack thereof. And so, since this is, I think, one of the most egregious examples we have of the security at Hogwarts, we'll just say, oh my god, and tell you to tune in 3 episodes from now.
Yes. But yes, the only pro, I guess, for security at Hogwarts is that they are caught having done this. Not the 4 strangers, but the 2 students after they've completed their mission, and only because they left the invisibility cloak at the top of the tower, are caught by Filch, which leads to my absolute favorite David Bradley line of all time. Well, we are in trouble.
That is a great line.
It's amazing.
So good.
Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, it comes to us. I don't know if this ever happens anywhere else in the series, but we don't get it until the next movie.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's in Chamber. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true.
And I think, doesn't he say my? I think he says my.
Yeah, he does.
We are in trouble. But the way that he says trouble is just perfection. My, we are in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just so good, though. And I wish that it was here. He can say it just all the time. That should just be like his catchphrase. Anytime
Just every time he catches them being like, well, we are in trouble.
Yeah. I do like, though, that they did add it into the next movie because obviously we don't have this whole sequence in the first one.
Right.
So he didn't have an opportunity to say it because he doesn't catch them doing anything in the first one. So we had to have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always get so frustrated by the fact that they forget their invisibility.
Yes!
Just like,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, that is so dumb. Like, so dumb. Like, and especially for Hermione, I'm just like, you know, she's anxious about getting in trouble, and like, she forgets the one thing that would keep them from getting in keep them safe. Like, but I also, okay, I both hate it, and there is like a little bit of it that I appreciate, which is that, like, I feel like a lot of books about, like, kids doing adventure stuff, like, they just, like, always seem to, like, do everything so flawlessly, and they always seem to, like, have, I don't know, just be like, so, like, yeah, like, we got this, we have all these plans, everything is working, whatever. And this feels like a lot more like real life of just like, these are 11-year-olds and they made a really, really dumb mistake. And like, they are not like perfect at saving the world in any way, shape, or form. They are just kind of blundering through it and managed to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Jo is really good at sort of making them very human and very fallible, especially like in the big battle scenes. Like, I can't really think of many other fantasy books where the, you know, characters just realistically like panic and forget a thing and like, you know, forget that you can't magically light a fire or forget that you keep zombies away with fire or like, you know, just the fact that these things just leave your brain when you are in a high-stress, panicking situation.
Yes.
But yeah, I think she does a really, really good job of sort of showing how, you know, tweens would realistically handle these situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that ends the chapter. I feel like a lot happens in this chapter, and yet nothing happens in this chapter? Question?
Yeah.
Like, we get rid of Norbert here, and we get some, kind of Malfoy drama, and we're out of bed, but there's really nothing that kind of occurs, and we learn a little bit of information, but we already kind of had a lot of the information.
Yeah, it's a very odd one. It's fairly unusual within the series because, yeah, it just, it's completely self-contained. Basically, if this chapter gets its own episode of the TV series, it's going to be, the lowest rated episode, and everyone's going to be like, God, that was just filler. Why did we watch that? And, unusually for these slice of life chapters, because I feel like we discuss a bunch of them, and I feel like we always really like the slice of life chapters because they're like, look at all the clues, look at all the development, look at all the character work that's being done. Here, there isn't even a ton of foreshadowing that I caught. I mean, there's some, because, it is Harry Potter. So there's, how Hagrid won the dragon egg from a stranger. There's listing the professors who protected the stone with Quirrell and Snape. But that's it, really. There's just not that much going on. It really is just this, little dragon adventure that they go on. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it lifts out really cleanly. You can see why they took it out in the movies.
Yeah, I really can't complain that they excluded it, because, it's expensive, and yeah. But yeah, honestly, with the whole, self-contained nature of it and the, Hagrid of it all, I think this might be in the running for my least favorite chapter of the series. Honestly, if Hermione didn't have the jig and song, it might just firmly be the least favorite. That quote does help. It's an odd one.
Yeah.
Can you guys think of any other chapters that are, this self-contained within the series? Because none are coming to mind.
Grow up, for sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really.
Not off the top of my head, but...
I mean, I'm curious, do you guys like that? Do you like this whole, mini adventure, or do you want it to be, something, servicing the bigger picture?
I mean, it services the bigger picture a bit, but, I mean, I guess, to be honest, the first book is my least favorite book, and that's because, in general, yeah, the plot doesn't feel as... Yeah, the plot feels a little bit more like, this thing happens, and this thing happens, and, it doesn't feel quite as, tied together, or, yeah, it doesn't quite feel like she's gone in the swing of what she wants to do, so... I don't mind. It's not oh, I really don't like this part of the book. I enjoy the fact that Norbert exists. It's a kind of fun thing, but also it feels also like a lot of the first book for me, where things are just not quite as polished plot-wise.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it, but I will say, I'm just now realizing, I think we do get a lot in future books of callbacks to this whole thing, that where Harry's train of thought will go back to, and Hagrid, who, once had a illegal dragon or whatever. It's an offhand comment that is made later. And I kind of like having that little mini adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely establishes Hagrid's character very well, in that, once we meet Aragog, then it's, doesn't seem as crazy that, oh, yeah, he was expelled from Hogwarts for keeping a giant spider in a cupboard. It definitely establishes Hagrid's character of, yeah, this is the kind of thing he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. I think that probably is the sort of the biggest thing this chapter does in service of the series is, yeah, tell us who Hagrid is. Because, all throughout the rest of the series, Harry is well, I mean, I've known Hagrid to, give teddy bears to dragons that rip their heads off. R.I.P. teddy bear. But, yeah, it'd be like that sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't mind reading it because, well, also it's a very tight 16 pages. It doesn't go on for very long. But yeah, I definitely think there's more Sorcerer's Stone where, plot seems to happen more than it seems to be propelled by, what characters are doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did Leah's AirPods die? I think they might have done. Yes, so we just wrapped up the chapter as a thing, unless you have any concluding thoughts.
I did have one. Stoat sandwiches. I had no idea as a kid what a stoat was.
Oh.
Hagrid makes them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know if you guys knew already, but it's like a weasel ferret situation animal. It sounds kind of gross.
Sounds gross.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a Weasley in your cabin, you know.
No, but I think it's a Draco thing. I think he's trying to just eat ferrets in revenge.
Yes. He knows what's to come. He knows that Draco is a ferret.
Yeah, there's the foreshadowing we were looking for.
Foreshadowing.
There it is.
All right, well then, I think it's time for the 7 ingredients of today's special.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So there are 7 living creatures atop the tower at the end of the chapter. We have Harry, Hermione, Norbert, and Charlie's 4 friends. So, of course, it's a set of 7.
Nice.
Woohoo.
Yes. And now we have to tell you that this chapter was sponsored by the hottest new weight loss drug, unicorn blood. A cup a day, and you'll be sure to fit into Madame Malkin's tightest dress robes. We managed to get a testimonial from a customer who was very satisfied while alive. Quirinus Q said, "Unicorn blood helped me shed those pesky last few pounds, and now my robes are so loose, it's almost like I can fit 2 people in them."
Hey, Urban.
Yeah?
What's playing on the pub's jukebox today?
Well, since we've been talking about Charlie and how much we love Charlie and how much we want more of Charlie, we are going to listen to Charlie in Romania by the wizard rock band Ollivander, who put out a whole album of songs all inspired by Sorcerer's Stone. So give it a listen.
What a surprise, Hagrid hatched a dragon egg in his hut, and they knew that it wouldn't end well. Oh, that's just great, Malfoy saw. Now they're all screwed for sure, and they're gonna need a plan. Harry said to our Charlie in Romania, they'll take the dragon off their hands. Norbert's getting bigger by the day. This might be the only way.
Well, we just wanted to give another huge thanks, Leah, for joining us today here at the Three Broomsticks.
Yay!
Thank you guys for having me.
Woo! It was so nice to have you. Is there anywhere for people to follow you, or is there anything that you want to plug here?
I do exist on the social media as The Caramelized Life. I do vegan, gluten-free recipes. They're yummier than they sound. Yummier than a stoat sandwich, hopefully. So if you're into, that sort of thing, you can find me on Instagram over there. And I think that's all I'll plug.
Fantastic.
And yeah, it was an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
And we'll also have a huge thanks again to Carolina Oberlander, who bought us this round of drinks at the Three Broomsticks. If you would like to buy us the next round, dear listener, please head on over to patreon.com/3broomsticks. That is with the numeral 3 to sign up. You can also help by rating and reviewing us. And if you like our show, please don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth helps us hugely, and we always love to see new people coming on over.
Yeah. And also, if you want to get in touch with us, come find us on social media. Our, New Year's resolution has been to be way better at social media. So, we're going to have more content around there and just, try to keep up a presence in between episodes. So you can find us on Twitter, not on TikTok. Can you find anyone on TikTok? Is there a TikTok? We don't know what's happening there. But you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. Our assorted handles and our email address can be found in the episode description or on the website. The website is 3broomstickspod.com with the 3 spelled out. There you'll find links to the essays we mentioned. You can submit topics for us to talk about in the future, and just let us know your thoughts on the episode, about, all things to do with Charlie, with Norbert, how Ron knows all the laws, all that good stuff. We want to hear from you. And, this episode, Draco Malfoy was a bit of a little shit. But could that be...
What?
Because he's just a bit lonely? Next time we meet at the 3 Broomsticks, we are going to be discussing Draco Malfoy's love life in our episode about shipping Draco Malfoy. So that is going to be so much fun.
So excited.
Draco Norbert? Question mark?
Oh!
Stop!
Tune in and find out. And with that, I've been Irvin.
And I'm Sophia.
And I'm Sierra. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time at the 3 Broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The 3 Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Ooh, a tight 2 hours. Look at us go. In fairness, I budgeted a lot more time for fighting about Hagrid, so...